So the first question that I'm going to address goes like, are you not the one who goes around saying artists should be original?
Ask Mono is an educational program where Mono Mukundu answers questions from his followers about music and the music industry in general.
So this is God's favorite guitarist once again. I would like to thank everybody for the overwhelming support that we saw at Legends Night. HICC was filled to capacity on a Sunday. It usually doesn't happen like that. So thank you for the support. So this video is basically based on the Legends Night gig. Because after the Legends Night gig, I received several questions from people who wanted to understand more about copyright issues and so forth. But I'd like to make a disclaimer. This video is not about the tariffs. We were instructed by the National Arts Council to desist from talking about this issue until it has been resolved. So judging from the questions that I received, I noticed that when it comes to copyright issues, there is still a lot of ignorance amongst the artists themselves and amongst music fans. But I appreciate it when people ask respectfully, and then we discuss. It helps us to grow in our knowledge. So copyright issues come in different forms. Of course, it's the same topic, but there's a lot of subdivisions. I can give an example. For example, when covering a recorded song, there are two types of copyright. There's a copyright segment of the song itself, the composition itself. Then there's the segment for the actual recording itself, which is sometimes called or referred to as the masters. I'm sure if you follow world music trends, you notice how a lot of artists were fighting with their record labels concerning masters. And I think one of the biggest fights was between Taylor Swift and the record label. And she went on to re-record all her songs that were recorded under record labels so that she could own her masters. But in Zimbabwe, of course, that issue is never mentioned because the majority of our artists have been recording their own music. So they own the masters and we no longer have proper record labels in Zimbabwe. So there are so many different facets and so many subtopics when it comes to copyright. But the problem is if you bundle them up as one thing, you get a lot of confusion. So you need to be able to separate them. So the first question that I'm going to address is coming from Lionel Tatenda. And the question goes like, this was an exceptional show, really. Thank you very much. But are you not the one who goes around saying artists should be original? So in this case, Lionel thinks that doing a cover is the same thing as failing to be original. So that's one question that I want to address right now. I'm going to include a segment where I describe what a cover is later on. But right now, I just want to say to Lionel, there is a huge difference between doing a cover and lacking originality. Because there is no way you can be original on a work that is not your own. When you are doing a cover, you are doing a rendition of someone's song. So how can you be original on someone's song? The only thing that you can do is do your own rendition or add your own feel or change the genre or play it as it is. But even if you play it as it is still your own rendition. So doing a cover version and lacking originality, those are two totally different things. I don't think you've ever seen anyone being taken to court for doing a cover. But people have been taken to court for stealing, for plagiarism. The second part of his question goes, how many times do you give tribute to legends? Do you do it every time you perform? Okay, that's a good question as well. And the answer is as many times as you want. First of all, I want us to remove the thinking that doing a cover version is theft. That's a very primitive way of thinking. Doing a cover version is not theft. I can give you an example that I gave the other time of Jamaican artists who crafted their art by copying or imitating Dennis Brown during their coping stages. Because when you're learning an instrument or when you're learning to sing, there's a stage that we call the coping stage, where you copy people that you admire. And there's a very huge list of Jamaican artists who started singing by copying Dennis Brown during their coping stages. These artists include Freddie McGregor, Maxi Priest, and the list goes on. And all these artists, what they do is before they end every show, they dedicate a segment or a song from Dennis Brown that they perform as a tribute to Dennis Brown. I want you to take a look at this show where Freddie McGregor paid tribute to Dennis Brown.
Personally, tonight, this show could not have ended without a real, true tribute. And of late, I never do a concert without doing a song from this brother, because he's really close as a brother saying. I am speaking of none other than our brother, the Right Honorable Dennis Emmanuel Brown.
So this does not mean that Freddie McGregor had run out of songs. No. Freddie McGregor has got 38 albums. So he can never run out of songs. 38 albums and countless singles. We wanna push come to shove. A lot of songs. So he will never run out of songs. This does not mean that Freddie McGregor was stealing from Dennis Brown. No. It was out of respect. That is how we pay respect as musicians to our legends. It's either we cover their songs or we write songs for them. But the most common type of respect or type of paying tribute is when you do their song. That's why when Bob Marley died, there were so many tributes. And if you look at all the tributes, they were doing Bob Marley cover songs. The same thing happened when Oliver Mtukudzi passed away. There were cover versions from Nigeria, cover versions from South Africa. Cover versions from United States of America, from Europe, from all around the world. They were doing
Toddy, what shall we do since the journey?
They were doing Oliver Mtukudzi covers as respect to Oliver Mtukudzi. Even when Jimmy Lulu came to perform in Zimbabwe last week, he even invited me on stage to do a cover of Oliver Mtukudzi's song as respect to Oliver Mtukudzi. So I want us Zimbabweans to understand that doing a cover is not theft. I don't know who came up with this thinking, and it's tinyadzisane dzimwe nyika so vachinzwa kuti ndozvatikuita kuno kuti munhu akaita cover kutonzi aba vanototinyarira kuti nai munofunga sei nai mazimbabwe ndosaka ndataura neshona because even kutotaura nechirungu ndotonyara. Now another question is coming from Pem Mupambwa. Her contribution was that mari iyoyo ngaipiwe malegends. Okay, so according to Pamela's thinking, if you do a cover song, you're supposed to take all the gate takings and take them to the composer of the song, regardless of the fact that you hired a PA system, regardless of the fact that you did rehearsals, regardless of the fact that you hired a venue, and all the costs that you incurred. It doesn't matter. You need to take all that money to the composers of the song. Yeah, that's a different type of thinking. I also received another message from Twitter. Okay, it's now called X. What is his name? It's taking too long. Okay, I will try to remember his name, maybe, and write it somewhere there. According to their thinking, every time you do a cover song or you want to do a cover song, you have to go and knock on each artist's door. If you are going to do 10 covers at your show, you have to knock on each door. Go, I've come to ask for permission to do your song. Then after the show, you take all the money and take it to those people. That's not how the music industry works. The music industry, just like any other industry, has got channels that we operate with. For example, there is what we call centralization. Yeah. What we mean by centralization is, for example, all the composers are represented by collecting societies. And you also have what are known as music publishers. A publisher is the one who manages the commercial and legal aspects of a composer's work. So we have publishers, we have collecting societies. I know that the copyright law says you need permission from the artist. But if the artist is operating under a publisher or under a collecting society, you don't have to approach the artist directly. As long as you get permission from the publisher or from the collecting society, you are covered already. This also covers when you want to perform a cover song at a venue. Internationally, what you do is, if you are performing at a venue that is a performance license, you are covered already. What you just need to do is to present your set list that shows which songs you are going to cover and by which artists. And then after the show, the venue submits the set list to the collecting society. And the artists that you covered are paid from that license. So there's no need of saying some people are benefiting from performing other composers' music without paying anything. No, they are not supposed to pay anything. It's covered by the license. That's how the international community works. So that's centralization. Do you note that due to centralization, a lot of artists don't even know that their songs were covered by that artist or that artist? I'm going to show you a video where Shaggy showed a member of Starship, in fact, the lead vocalist of Starship, Mickey. He showed him a video of Frankie Paul performing his song Sarah. The song Sarah was released in 1985, and Frankie Paul did his cover 2 years later in 1987. In Zimbabwe, it was released in 1988. That's when I first heard it. And Mickey only heard about this cover in 2025. Imagine, from 1987 to 2025, he didn't know that this song was covered by Frankie Paul. Why? Because Frankie Paul just went through the channels. He went through the publishers. Bam, Bazaratoroa. Now some Zimbabweans think that Frankie Paul was supposed to go and knock on Starship's door and say, can I please do Sarah? No, that's not how things are done. There's centralization. Here's the video.
This is a singer by the name of Frankie Paul. Frankie Paul, Jamaican singer. And he covered your song. And check this version. Okay, I know it now. Wow, that's amazing, man. Yeah. Whole different feel. Different pocket. Yeah. And this was a hit in Jamaica? This is a massive, massive hit within reggae and dancehall fraternity. I've never heard it. Massive, massive. But it's your song, but it was interpreted a little different. I know, thank you for that, man. Different. Thank you for turning me on to it. In a reggae vibe too. I'm going to share that.
Now, there are a lot of what psychology calls logical fallacies. A logical fallacy is when you use a faulty reasoning to construct an argument and make it look very logical when the argument doesn't make any sense. And one of the most powerful logical fallacies that is used is when you use emotions. What happens with emotions is they block your critical thinking. I can give an example. For example, I compose a song, then it becomes a hit, and artists start covering my song, and then I'm involved in an accident. I'm now moving around in a wheelchair. Someone can come with an argument that is full of logical fallacies and say, Mono, look at you, you are struggling to pay your hospital bills, you are now moving with a wheelchair. But Sarungan is covering your music. Mbeu is covering your music. Deringpov is covering your music. Are they giving you any money? It sounds very logical, is it? But it's not. Why? It sounds logical because there's been a use of emotions. Shem, you are now moving in a wheelchair. But look at Sarungano is covering your song. Did he give you any money? If Sarungano decides to come and pay me something out of the goodness of his heart, that's fine. That's a moral issue. But don't mix moral issues with legal issues. Those are two different things. As long as Sarungano has performed at a restaurant that has got a license, he's paid me already. He doesn't have to come to me and pay me money directly. If Daring Pofu records my song, it doesn't mean he has to come directly to me and pay me the money. It just goes through my publisher and the collecting society, and bam, the work is done. But if you explain it like this, man, with shame, money is struggling. It doesn't mean I'm struggling because someone is doing my song. That's not how the world works. So those are called logical fallacies. If you use emotions like fear, and so forth, critical thinking stops. No, I don't know mind. So when people are in a group, their critical thinking levels are very low. You don't know. You see? So we need to be very careful of the difference between moral issues and legal issues, as well as to be careful of logical fallacies. So in the next chapters, I'm going to explain what is a cover version, what is imitation, what is derivative work, what is interpolation, so that we don't mix up issues. So what is a cover version? In Zimbabwe, it's exactly what we used to call copyrights. I'm sure you've heard people say so-and-so plays copyrights. The correct term is not copyright music, it's called cover version. It simply means doing your own rendition of someone's song or your own interpretation of someone's song. And doing covers is as old as the music industry itself. Because you know, the music industry as it is right now, it began in the United States of America. And from the time the music industry started, there's always been cover bands and cover artists. You know, artists like Elvis Presley and Whitney Houston, those two artists were not composers. So they relied on either cover versions or songs originally written for them by other composers. So there are basically two ways of doing covers. The first one is where you try to replicate exactly how the original version sounded like. There are situations where that type of covering is needed. Like in the Western world, they have what they call tribute bands. For example, if we know the band called Rolling Stones, they are tribute bands who are just dedicated to playing Rolling Stones music. They don't play anything else. So in that case, you really need to sound like Mickey Jagger when you sing. You really need to sound like Keith Richards when you play your guitar. You really need to sound like the Rolling Stones as a band. A lot of tribute bands or cover bands that concentrate on one artist, like at the Rolling Stones cover bands, as I've mentioned, ABBA tribute bands, U2 cover bands, and so forth and so forth. But my favorite type of covering a song is when you take a song, but do it in your own way, in a totally different way. I can give an example. If you know the song I Shot the Sheriff by Bob Marley.
They say they want to bring I am guilty for the life of a deputy.
Eric Clapton did a cover. They did it in a rock genre.
They say they want to bring me in guilty for the killing of a deputy.
If you know the song Ruarangu, which was made more popular by Prudence Katumeni in the Jazz Imitation. The song was written by Brian Rosike. So the first version, he recorded it with the Pied Pipers band. It was sort of reggae-ish. It had the reggae feel. But the cover version, which became more popular, is the one which was done by Prudence Katomeni with Kelly Rusike and the Jazz Imitation Band with the likes of Philbert, Marwa, and so forth. It's totally different from the original version. Even the intros. I'll play you the intro to the original. Now, here's the intro to the cover version, which was done by Prudence Katomeni and the Jazz Imitation Band. That's a brilliant intro. So it's totally different from the original version. Even the way they played inside the song is totally different. So for me, personally, I prefer that type of covering because it shows your own creativity. But it's not like I disrespect the other style of doing things where you sound exactly like the original. Because there are moments or there are occasions where you really need to sound like the original. Cover songs are usually better or even get to be more popular than the original versions. Good examples are like the songs that are covered by UB40 Band. If you listen to the original songs, usually they won't be as big hits as the cover versions, which are produced by UB40.
Red wine, go to my red wine, goes to my head.
And another good example is songs by Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is an American folk guitarist. In my view, Bob Dylan is not a great singer, and he's also not a great guitarist, but he's a very good composer. A lot of his songs were covered by other artists. And if you listen to Bob Dylan's original version and the versions that are done by other people, there's a huge difference. I can take, for example, his song, Knock Knock on Heaven's Door. Listen to his original.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Okay, that's his original. But I prefer the version that was done by Randy Crawford. Listen to the way she did it.
Knock, knock, knocking on a heaven's door. Well, I feel I'm knocking. Knock, knock, knocking on a heaven's door.
Yeah, this song has got so many versions. There's even a reggae version by Luciano. Here it is. Now let's move to plagiarism. Plagiarism means taking someone's idea and claiming it to be yours. That's plagiarism. Or in other words, it's theft. So the most popular type of plagiarism is when you take someone's melody and put your own words. That one happens a lot and it's difficult to notice because if there are new words to the melody, you might not notice it. I can give an example. The melody for the first lines of our national anthem is da 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 da. Then the words in Shona is Simudzai Mureza Wedu Zimbabwe. Now you can take that melody and put different words. You know, Kuda Chaizo, then put other words. Some people will tell you I've composed a song. But in such a case, that's not a composition because you have taken someone's melody and put your own words, which is plagiarism. So this has happened a lot. Another example that I can give is, we can take, for example, the song Chemtengure. Chemtengure, Chemtengure. The melody is... If you put your own words like, Dokudai wewe, Dokudai wewe, you have not composed anything. You have simply taken Chemtengure's melody and put your own words. So that's plagiarism or theft, in other words. So to conclude the plagiarism subtopic, I want to explain that putting your own words to someone's song is plagiarism. It falls under what's known as interpolation. That's where you can put your own words to someone's melody, or take someone's melody, maybe an instrumental melody, to create your own song, just like what they do in sampling. It's also interpolation. And one of the biggest interpolation examples that we have in Zimbabwe is when Joyful Praise Choir put their own lyrics on Zigzag Band song Gomaramasare, and they call it Gomoreminana. But I'm not putting a blame on anyone, because I'm not sure whether they got a permission or not, or if they talked about it later. This is just an example. Because wapano Joyful Praise wapano wangu and Zigzag mafesa angu, so I'm not trying to cause a fight between the two. So taking parts of someone's song and creating your own song is also known as derivative work. Just like as I explained on this interview that I did with Star FM. I can give an example. Pane song ya album to I Wanna Know. Pane artist of America knows Bonnie Raitt. Akatora the bass line resong you, akatora the drum pattern ne lead guitar line. Zvimwe zvese vakagadzira panyowani. But I got to kumbira permission, and the album was paid over $40,000 just for that. So then we move to the third segment, which is imitation. And what I mean by imitation is when you try to sound exactly like Alec Macheso, when you try to sound exactly like Japreza, when you try to sound exactly like Charles Charamba, to the extent that when your song is played, people confuse it for Japreza, people confuse it for Oliver Mtukuzi's song. This is when you take or remove your own identity and take someone's identity musically, and you sound exactly like them. You twist your words or you mold your words using nuances that they use when they sing. So imitation is shaping your career, your musicality, on basing it on someone else's sound, trying to sound exactly like somebody else. And I'm not talking about copying his songs. You can create your own songs, but create them in his style and sound exactly like him. But that's different from doing a cover version. Because a cover version, you can take someone's song and even do it in your own style, which is totally different from the original version. That's also different from plagiarism, where you steal someone's work or someone's melody and put your own words and create something new. This is when you are trying to be someone that you are not. Those three things are totally different. Yeah. So my conclusion is there are people who are saying that I am supporting cover bands to carry on in business. Isn't it the same thing as plagiarism? No, it's not. Isn't it the same thing as imitating another artist? No, it's not. Those are three different areas. When you are doing a cover version, you are reinterpreting a song in your own way. You can even do it in your own genre. But when you are plagiarizing, you are stealing, that's different. When you are imitating someone, you are trying to be someone that you are not, so that's different. So I just wanted to make it clear that those three things are totally different. So thank you very much for taking your time to listen to my nonsense. And I would like to say to Zimbabwe, please, let's keep supporting our youngsters. There is no country that will have a bright future if they don't encourage their youngsters. Thank you very much.